Okay, welcome to our six-figure infill deal projects review. This is our call where we review our current projects and the progress we have made since the previous month. This is, I believe, the third month that we've been doing this. So we basically, if you go back and watch the previous months, you can kind of see the progress from month to month that we make on our projects. Most of the deals that we have right now are going through entitlements. Basically, when we set up this system, we basically spent a year, the better part of a year setting it up and launching it. And so we had kind of a gap of like some projects finishing up, and then we haven't started construction on anything here recently, but we have some stuff coming up that we will start construction on. But we have projects going through entitlements right now, and then as these move through entitlements and get approved, you'll be able to watch them as they go under construction. And so it's just a couple things is the reason why you would want to watch this is if number one, obviously, if you own one of these projects, it's your monthly update on the progress that was made from the previous month. Or if you're an investor that's interested in buying a project, and occasionally we do our own projects we have investors in. It just gives you a little bit of insight as far as the progress that's made on a month-to-month basis, and a little bit of insight on the kind of behind the scenes what goes on with these projects and how we get them approved. And then number three is just education. So whether you're going to buy a project or not, if you're just curious on how entitlements work, because ultimately there's not a lot of information out there on this process. So, ultimately we're all about educating and providing value to people no matter what. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the project updates here. And because we are kind of on a short month, or basically this Friday ended up being a little bit shorter period than I expected. I didn't have full updates, but we have we'll kind of explain the progress from last month. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so first things first, we're going to cover our Federal Way condo tower. So this project is a partnership that we are we came in partnership with the landowner, and then also we brought on the architect. And so this has been about a year in the works now. We went through the due diligence process and then basically kind of found out some information from essentially the trash company. Republic Services kind of held up the project because they didn't have a valid way to access the trash on this property. Even though they're already accessing the trash on the lot, or sorry, on the street, it's a dead end street without a proper turnaround. So they basically wanted us to put in the proper turnaround, but we're just really limited on this lot. So we have options to move forward, but what we decided, basically as a team, is that we need to have our partnership paperwork finalized before we take any other giant leaps. So essentially, right now I've sent the partnership paperwork to the other team members to review, and so I expect probably next month we will have that the draft agreement kind of updated and finalized, and hopefully start moving together forward again together starting next month. So I think so we've went through the initial early assistance, the interdepartmental review. That's where it kind of got paused. And then basically the next steps forward would be after this is just kind of communicating with Republic Services and the fire department on what our plan is. There's one part of the plan also is going to involve ACHD and the city, basically creating an alley between two streets where the alley doesn't exist already. So that's just the details that we'll move forward with as we kind of finalize the partnership agreement if we go that way. The one thing that kind of made us pause too is the owner was considering, selling it early because he wasn't sure how much he wanted to hold on to this for the next 2 or 3 years or wait through for the development. And so that's also kind of why we paused until we have that solidified. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the Sycamore Forest. This is a project. This was another a little bit challenging project where it requires a rezone in order to develop the way we want to. This is a project that the previous owner came to us, and had originally split off the lot, but wasn't really sure how to do it. So he ran into a lot of problems, but then he also didn't maximize the possibilities with it. So he came to me essentially and wanted me to attempt to maximize the profitability of this. And so that's what we're doing. We have it as a 4-home subdivision plan. But that in order to do that, normally I don't recommend anybody close on a property if they don't if they're expecting the rezone to happen, because the rezone is always a coin flip. But particularly in this neighborhood, there's just a lot of number one, a lot of pushback. But number two, it's just the way the neighborhood plan was made, the rezone makes it really tough. What I will say, what we have going for us on this one is that uh, all of the city documents. So we have the blueprint Boise, which is basically the long-term vision for Boise, the State Street Corridor Plan, which is an ACDHD plan, and then also the long-term transportation plan. All three of those support these. And so I basically spent like 8 hours writing the project description letter, probably the best project description letter I've written in my life. But ultimately, I spent that much time doing it because I wanted to be very detail oriented on why this should get approved, because ultimately everything supports it. There's just one neighborhood plan that is predates all the other plans, and specifically says that in case it doesn't line up with a city plan, then we would refer to the city plan. So I just want to point all that stuff out and be very careful. So anyway, that application got submitted in March. We were supposed to hear back this month on if it was going to go in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission next month. But I just found out yesterday that we don't have that confirmation. So I don't think it's going to end up in front of Planning and Zoning Commission in May, which it should have. So that's like kind of one of those things where it's probably going to be delayed a month, and wasn't, we got it in time. It was just ultimately Planning and Zoning. And to be honest, with this project, I would rather have them take the extra time to really consider it than to push it forward on schedule and just kind of willy-nilly it, because this one specifically is just kind of a unique deal. And so anyway, we'll keep you posted on the next month. The next month we should hear we should have more news, I should say, from the planner and what their recommendation is. We knew going into this that the rezone was at best a coin flip. So we'll see. If they don't rezone it, he still has the lot. He basically will make money on selling the individual lot. It's just that if we can rezone it and get 4 houses out of it, now it becomes a home run instead of a single. So okay, and then we have Life Tree Village. So this is a project that I've had for a couple years. We built and sold some homes. I have 2 more lots on there. I've just been kind of most of my time has been dedicated to like setting up and launching this system. And so these 2 lots have kind of been on pause for me just because I have been focused on other things, but I have 2 lots sitting there they're ready to build on. So we also had them on the market to see if we can get them pre-sold, but ultimately, here in the next couple months, we will start some spec homes on there ideally. So, or if we can get it pre-sold as some semi-custom, that's even better because it saves me some time and energy. All right, and then we have this Denton. We have a project that another owner, he already owned a property and he's splitting off a lot. So we are going through the subdivision process for a single lot split. So we're splitting off, I think it was a 30-foot wide lot or 33-foot wide lot. So that application got submitted last month. We did hear back, that is getting on the planning and zoning hearing schedule for May. So in May, we'll have an update on what the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended. I will say I'm expecting this to be kind of a no-brainer for them. It pretty much meets or fits inside their little box. So most projects, as long as you fit inside the box of what the Planning and Zoning Commission allows and the planning, what the zoning ordinances allow for, those projects get approved. It's when you're trying to work outside of the box that they make for you that though that's where the question marks come in. So like this project, pretty straightforward, so it should get approved. Then the process after that, once the project is approved, then we get the civil engineering finalized. Since this is a pretty simple lot split, there's already, curb and gutter. We just have to put a sidewalk in and move a couple of things. The civil engineering should be pretty straightforward. So we should be able to start construction on that, on the horizontal before the end of the year, I think. And then we have another project in Meridian. This is actually basically the first client of ours with our system that we launched, but it was a little bit before, it was basically before we actually finalized the system with having the profit guarantee and entitlements guarantee. So we ran into some challenges with Meridian after they basically got our hopes up. And so kind of looking back on this, I'd probably do it differently next time, but it's moving through entitlements. We have the projects or the plans, I should say, are in the city. They've gotten approved through ACHD already. They're in with the city. We're expecting final approval on the plans probably next month or hopefully next month. And then from there, we will either do construction on it, or it sounds like the client may just want to sell this project as entitled, which, the great thing with these strategies is that there are multiple exit points. So if everything doesn't go perfectly according to plan, you can always sell at entitlements. You can sell at, even before that, you can sell as a concept. Most of the time we don't underwrite it that way unless that's your intention, because there's not as much profitability there. But you could theoretically, get something under contract and, basically put together a feasible plan and then just resell that. Again, not as much profit margin there, but that is a possibility. And then the next step is on entitlements, which is what this will be through here soon. And then the next one is, once the next phase is development. So once we put in all the infrastructure, so on this one, we have to put in a sewer line and water line and get the power infrastructure up. And so if he decides to move forward with that, then we can get that lot officially split and he can sell it as an individual lot versus just entitled. And so typically that's even a little bit more profitable. And then the final phase would be on the vertical, building out a house and finishing it. We're fairly certain that we're not going to go through that phase at all on this project, just because essentially what happened on this one, the city got our hopes up that they would rezone it and approve a 3-unit build. And then shortly after, they got our hopes up, and after we got through due diligence, that turned into a 1-unit deal, which again, going into it, we always knew that was a possibility. We just decided it was, as a team, we decided it was worth the risk. And so it turned out to be that, and it ends up being a bunt single instead of a home run, but we'll just move on to the next one. But we did underwrite and account for that the whole time. All right, and then we have the Xenia subdivision. So this is one that we had a client close on earlier this year. We actually talked about this in my call just before this. But essentially what's kind of cool about this project, in fact, I still have, I think, the site plan pulled up. Let me stop my share and share my other screen. Okay. So this project, this is the property he owns. We originally had planned to entitle it for and build 5 units. Well, then this property came on the market. It's on the market. We have a buyer lined up for this property. So then once that happened, we were like, well, what if we turn this into a bigger project and incorporated all these surrounding projects and essentially turned it into a bigger, like much cooler project and maximizing the profitability for everybody. And so we've been talking to the owner of this front lot up here. And he hasn't been super agreeable. He is interested in selling. He just thinks he has a lot more leverage, I think, than he actually has. But we're still trying to move forward. So we'll see if we come to terms, but essentially this is can be another 8 units that we could add if we get that parcel. And then this back parcel, if we get this under contract or come to terms with this gentleman, then I have the contact information for these people. I'll reach out to them. In fact, I'll probably reach out to them anyway, and see if they want to be incorporated. But this actually isn't necessary to develop the rest of it. Basically, if we develop all this, we can maximize the density because we can increase the unit count of both of these parcels by 3. And we also reduce the parking requirements of all of them. So essentially, as you build more, you have less parking required than if you built them all separately or developed them all separately. And so that's been kind of what we've been working on the past month. So we kind of paused the entitlements a little bit on this project because we've been working on, number one, negotiating with this person, but also negotiating with this gentleman. And we've kind of come to terms with this one. It's not under contract yet, but we've kind of have terms in place. And then this gentleman, we're still working on that. So, but hopefully something happens there. Okay, and then we have this Boise Avenue project. This is another client that's actually a realtor. So they bought this property and then we're splitting off 2 lots from the back. When we bought it, we realized, or when we were under contract, we realized that the back property line didn't line up with what the county records were. And then even more so, we've later realized that, so we knew that was already a thing. And we realized that essentially through more research that when they originally platted this is just one of those weird nuance things where this just random thing that happened. But when they platted this, I don't know, in the 50s or whenever it was, possibly, yeah, right around then. They created some unnamed, unnumbered lots. So just these slivers of lots, because there's a canal back there. And so basically they created this sliver of a lot that the canal takes up, and then also like that little bit of space between the canal and the road right of way. So they created this unnumbered lot that doesn't belong to anybody. So basically we're going through a quiet title action. And so just a random process that we have to go through. I've never run into this before, but it's anyway, we're making progress on that. The attorney has filed the documents that they need to file. I think that typically takes 60 days to kind of start the court process system. They sent me documents, so I've actually used my contacts with the irrigation companies to essentially what they do is they sign off saying that they don't have any ownership rights to the canal because they don't own the land. They just have easements over that land. And so those easements stay in place, but they're saying that they don't own the land or they don't have ownership rights to the land. But their easement stays in place. So that's what that quiet title is. Then I think the highway district also has to sign off on that. And then whoever originally created the land, which is an LLC that doesn't exist anymore. So we imagine that that'll be ruled in favor of us. It's just going to take a little bit of time to do, but just one of those random things basically, adds to the timeline of this, adds a little bit of cost. We knew going into it before they closed that this was something that we would have to do. But great location. It's a few blocks from BSU, so the rentals here are great. And in fact, we have some really good comparables from last month. We actually just had 2 new homes in the neighborhood hit the market. They're already pending, as they're under construction, but they're already pending for over 100,000 from what our most recent comparables were. Now, what those do have, compared to some of the recent comparables, are they have attached ensuite bathrooms to 3 of the bedrooms, but then they also have like a 400 square foot ADU above the garage. And so we'll have to, we have different design on the ones that we're designing for this lot, but those are really good comparables for the neighborhood. And some of our In fact, one of the houses we're designing has a basement ADU, and I think it's a total of 5 bedrooms, and I think 2 or 3 of those have en suites. I'll have to look at the floor plans again, but one of them is actually really similar. So I think that resale cost is going to end up being 100,000 more than we originally anticipated. So that's great news. All right, and then we have this is a cottage village that we were working on, kind of solidifying with the landowner as a partnership. This is another one where we're kind of at a pause a little bit. Essentially, we kind of started the process, got some information from the city. It was really helpful getting in front of the city actually, because I hadn't done a cottage village yet. And so there's some unique things in the code that pertain to it. So there's some clarifications there. But ultimately this homeowner, they're not sure if they're going to move forward or not. And so it's on a little bit of a pause. So what I'm doing this week is we're sending over an updated site plan and updated financials based on the feedback we got with the city. And so I think what'll end up happening is that'll be kind of the next step with that homeowner is is to see if it makes sense for her to move forward with the plan as we're proposing. Her hesitancy is, so she's lived in this property for years, and her hesitancy is just adding, in a cottage village you kind of maximize the density, so we'd be adding 12 cottages. And she was talking about like, oh, what can we add 6 of them? Well, the problem with that is, number one, I don't think the city would approve it, because the city essentially, if you're not maximizing the density of projects, they can deny it. And I've had that happen in there before. On my very first development, we weren't maximizing the density. Um, for basically because the seller was wanting to keep a larger chunk of land, and they denied the project altogether. So on that very first project, we had to go back to the seller, and they essentially incorporated the larger chunk of land in that development. But the city has every right to deny a project if it's not maximizing the use of the land. And so I think that's what would end up happening, number one. But number two is, if you're putting 6 homes on a property that can fit 12, well, all of the development costs are the same. So all the horizontal, you still have to put in the sewer, you still have to put in the water lines, you still have to put in the power, you still have to put in all that infrastructure. And now instead of dividing it by 12 units, you're only dividing it by 6. And so your infrastructure costs double for each unit. The unit costs, basically, the unit prices are the same, and the build costs are the same, but the infrastructure costs are different. And the land portion of that is double as well. So even though she owns it outright, um, you're so if you were buying that property, your land would cost would be essentially double per unit. But in this case, it's essentially your profitability per unit is severely reduced because all your infrastructure costs are double than what it would normally be if it was split up over more units. So we're gonna ultimately pencil this out and have her look at it again and see what she thinks. She might decide to move forward. She might decide to, hold off for a couple of years. We'll see. What I did recommend her, because this is gonna, if we do move forward, it's gonna be a partnership. And, with all the back and forth, what I don't want to happen is it's a constant battle during the whole process of decision making. Because what I do really well is I maximize the use and profitability of a project, and I make decisions, and all those decisions are made up front, and then we just go, go, go. When you own a property and you're emotionally tied to it, what ends up happening is you want to make decisions as you go, and every time you hesitate, that delays it by days, weeks, months. And then what that ends up doing is it costs you money in the long run, especially once something is under construction. Because as soon as you make a design decision that's already been made, or redesign something, well, even if that decision only takes 3 days, well, you now you have to bring those plans back, or that design back to somebody else. They have to redesign it, so that takes a week or two. And then if you have construction going on, well, now your next contractors that were lined up have to be paused, And those guys are lined up weeks in advance. So if they have to move to a different job site, now they're not on your schedule, you're on their schedule. So not only does it back it up by the couple days that you took to change your mind, but it backs it up because you're now relying on everybody else to be available when they can be available. And so ultimately, I just don't want that to happen with this project. So, if she decides to move forward, we'll make sure we have very clear terms. Because I've been through this before where we run into delays and people are, anyway, that I guess that's part of the benefit of working with somebody like me is, I kind of know what it takes to keep something moving. You just have to kind of a little bit leave it in my hands to be able to keep it moving, um, and go from there. Okay, and then we have our cottage, Latah Cottages. So this doesn't have an official project name yet, but it's a cottage village that we're planning for Latah Street. In fact, we just finished due diligence last week on this, last Thursday. I think I have the projects I can share here. The site plan. So this has been kind of redesigned a bunch of times based on all the feedback and playing with some different scenarios. But this is kind of what we're moving forward with so far. So these are all basically just footprints of cottages. So we have 6 of them facing the main street here. This is a pretty busy street. What we ran into, so we had a little bit, about 30 days of due diligence, a little bit more than that. So luckily we were able to get in front of the city the first time for the early assistance, and that helped. The second thing, which we don't always get time to do, but we got in front for the interdepartmental review, which we were able to get a little bit further feedback than we normally get in that early assistance. Now, the other thing I would say too is that we have a very thorough due diligence checklist, so we're able to uncover almost everything that we cover in that IDR anyway. But that IDR did bring up something that I haven't run into before, which is the school system. Normally they don't really care about projects, but this property specifically is directly across the street from the school. So the original site plan that we had on this one, or the final one we presented to the IDR, we had already talked to the ACHD, the highway district, and they want this driveway to line up with the driveway across the street of the school. So that's basically, this is lined up with the school. Well, what the school brought up was that they feel more comfortable with the driveway being as far north as possible for safety reasons for their, which is, a valid concern. I don't understand why it's more safe if it's 20 feet north versus directly across the street, but they do. And so essentially they brought up that concern, and then they requested that we get a traffic study done. So the reason why I bring this up is so we weren't originally planning to do that traffic study because ACHD, the highway district, told us we didn't need one, but the school district did. And that's something very rare. Like so there's never a development that ever goes perfectly like you plan it. There's always something that comes up that's unique. So we have a very thorough checklist to uncover those things, and we did uncover it. And the great thing is, the way we've set up our system now is that extra cost for that traffic study. Well, number one is we increased the cost because we were still under due diligence, but it would have been absorbed in the contingency budget we had anyway. So even if it came up after the fact, it wouldn't have blown the budget because we already planned for unexpected situations like this. So essentially, we uncovered it due diligence, which is great, but it wouldn't have been a big deal either way. It didn't kill the project by any means. It just changed it slightly and added a little bit of a cost. So basically, we just had to move the driveway. But ultimately, we still have 22 units that we can build, and that's what we ultimately guaranteed. So this is going to be a 22 unit cottage village. Most of these are going to be 1,000 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I think this one's going to be a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and a little bit shy of 1,000 square feet. And then we have all the trash and bike parking and all everything that we need to do. And so we're pretty confident in this site plan. We made some adjustments as we went. This won't be the final site plan, but it's getting pretty close. So we're moving towards full entitlements on this one. The next step so basically right now we're waiting on that traffic study. So we told them to get it done as soon as possible. They said they should have it back, I think, on May 8th. So then from there, that's what the highway district and the school will rely on. And so once that comes back, we'll communicate with the highway district and the school, determine what the final placement of the driveway is. We have, placement for either way. Doesn't really matter to us. The cost is the same either way. And then once they approve that, um, we just need to, the other thing is the trash collection location. Well, this isn't final yet. We think this works better than anything we've had so far. But it's just a, tricky site. It just needs to make sure that it meets the requirements, which I think this does. In fact, probably better than the other versions we've had. And so we'll finalize that. And then after that, we'll just send in the application. The great thing with these cottage villages is that they are administrative approvals. So, once you get kind of approval from the different departments, it just goes through planning and zoning administrative level. So you have the planners that are making the individual decisions on it. It doesn't have to go in front of the planning and zoning hearing or commission unless somebody appeals the decision. And then it doesn't go in front of city council either. So just that alone basically cuts off 3 to 6 months of approval timeline. And then you also have the civil engineering, because it's all kind of internal. It's a lot easier than traditional subdivisions. So I think we'll be able to, as long as this keeps moving forward the way it is, I think we'd probably be able to break ground pretty close to either the end of this year or early next year, which is pretty great for projects like this. All right, I'm going to stop my share. That's pretty much all the projects we're going to cover this week. Hopefully, or this month. Hopefully next month we'll have one or two more to share. And then we'll also have obviously updates of all these projects as well. So stay tuned. Hop on for next. It's every last Friday of the month. So I think next month is May 30th, is it? May 29th. And I just realized I might be out of town for that. So if I am, so we're backpacking that weekend. So if I can't make that call, I'll do it the Thursday before. So I'll do the 29th if I can't make that. But yeah, that's a monthly thing that we do if you have a project or you're just curious.